Welcome to the West Wing Week, your guide to everything that's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This week, the President hosted meetings with bipartisan congressional leaders, awarded the Medal of Honor, and repeatedly spoke to the country about the ongoing effort to find a balanced approach to our deficit challenges. That's July 8th to the 14th, or Our Heroes Are All Around Us.
LEROY PETRY showed that true heroes still exist and that they're closer than you think. And that ranger's right. Our heroes are all around us.
On Friday, July 8th, the President spoke from the Rose Garden on jobs and the need for Democrats and Republicans to compromise and find common ground so that the U.S. government can meet our obligations.
The American people sent us here to do the right thing, not for party, but for country. So we're going to work together to get things done on their behalf. That's the least that they should expect of us, not the most that they should expect of us. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves over the next several weeks and next several months. I know that people in both parties are ready to do that as well.
The President then sat down for a series of regional interviews with television journalists from Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Raleigh, and Seattle.
Mr. President, I actually went to high school with your mother.
Did you really?
Stanley Dunham.
No kidding.
I did, yes.
How about that?
And classmates describe her as smart, quirky, funny.
I think that's accurate.
Republicans, are, especially in the House, are pretty entrenched as far as no new taxes, no tax increases. How do we compromise on this?
Well, I think the way you compromise is to get outside of your narrow interests and think about the larger interests. And I've said to Democrats that they've got to set aside some of their sacred cows in order to solve this problem, and I say to the Republicans the same thing.
On Sunday, July 10th, the President called back bipartisan congressional leaders to the White House, a running theme of this episode, to keep working on tough choices that need to be made to move our economy forward and keep the country from defaulting on our debt.
All right, everybody. All right, we'll see you at the end. All right, guys.
Thank you. Can you work it out in 10 days, sir?
Thank you. We need to.
On Monday, July 11th, the President held a news conference and took questions from White House reporters about whether progress was made during Sunday's talks and whether the President could overcome Republican intransigence and reach a bipartisan agreement on a big deal that would meaningfully address America's long-term deficit challenge.
As all of you know, I met with congressional leaders yesterday. We're going to be meeting again today, and we're going to meet every single day until we get this thing resolved.
The President then welcomed the group back, this time in their business attire, to continue talks in the cabinet room. Later, the President surprised guests at a two-day Hispanic policy conference being held at the White House.
The purpose here was to make sure that you knew in each department, in each agency, what are the steps we're trying to take to respond to the genuine needs that you see at the community level.
On Tuesday, July 12th, the President started the day with an interview with Scott PELLEY from CBS, before welcoming Sergeant First Class LEROY PETRY to the White House to receive the Medal of Honor. This is only the second time since Vietnam that a recipient of the Medal of Honor from an ongoing conflict has accepted the medal in person.
I meant to ask you about
Yes,
this,
sir.
President.
Lefty?
I'm now a lefty, and I keep trying to find out how not to get the ink all over my palm.
You know what I do is I try to stay a little high, and then if I'm signing like a document where I think it might smudge, then I put a little piece of paper under my hand. But you get used to it. It's not like my handwriting is great.
Although picking up and throwing the live grenade grievously wounded Staff Sergeant Petry, his gallant act undeniably saved his fellow Rangers from being severely wounded or killed. Despite the severity of his wounds, Staff Sergeant Petry continued to maintain the presence of mind to place a tourniquet on his right wrist before communicating the situation by radio in order to coordinate support for himself and his fellow wounded Rangers.
When the fight was won, as he lay in a stretcher being loaded onto a helicopter, one of his teammates came up to shake the hand that LEROY had left. That was the first time I shook the hand of someone who I considered to be a true American hero, that Ranger said. LEROY PETRY showed that true heroes still exist and that they're closer than you think. And that Ranger's right. Our heroes are all around us. They're the millions of Americans in uniform who have served these past 10 years. Many, like LEROY, deploying tour after tour, year after year.
Later, the bipartisan congressional leadership arrived at the White House convening for the third day in a row of debt and deficit talks. On Wednesday, July 13th, the president made surprise calls to young leaders to congratulate them on their ongoing efforts on behalf of youth employment and entrepreneurship through the administration's 100 Youth Roundtables initiative. Later, for the fourth time this episode, congressional leaders arrived at the West Wing, a routine they seem to be getting accustomed to. The president reconvened the meeting and urged congressional leaders not just to kick the can down the road, but rather to find common ground around a big deficit reduction plan. On Thursday, the president discussed jobs in the economy with 3 television reporters before again meeting with the bipartisan leaders of the House and Senate. And again, legislative assistant BELIVE waited by the West Wing to take the representatives to the cabinet room as they arrived. To find out more information on any of these topics or to see complete videos of these events, go to whitehouse.gov. And thanks again for checking out your West Wing Week.
It says, some things are, hard things are hard.